The Spanish announce table.
It is episode 311. Like 311? Remember that band? Episode 311 of The Spanish Announce Table. We talk about pro wrestling, and it was a doozy of a week for pro wrestling for a myriad of factors. Tom, how are you before we get into all of that?
Doing okay, man. I tell you what, we're just coming off of the Thanksgiving week that was. Getting back into the swing of things because, as I mentioned, I was on a long vacation from work, so still getting my bearings and all of the emails caught up and whatnot. So, yeah, just kind of getting back into that mode where I'm working and getting into a routine, but knowing in a couple weeks that it gets all screwed up again because of Christmas. This is the weirdest time in the calendar, right? After Thanksgiving, before Christmas. I don't think anyone knows exactly what day it is. And that's how I feel.
Well, especially when you deal with something that, I mean, you may not be project-based, but you're dealing with things that are in various stages of like a project life cycle. Mm-hmm. And just, it's hard when you have, like you said, okay, we're off for a week. Okay. Hey, we're on for 2 weeks and a half. And then we're off for another week. Yeah. Then we come back for 3 days and we're off. Yeah, the American holidays are not spread out well.
Well, it's just odd because you can't really get a good routine towards the end of the year because, one, you don't know what your schedule is due to, you know, maybe vacation days, things like that. And then also when you work with clients, you don't know their schedule. Their schedule could be off from your schedule. It could be that we're not all doing the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off from work kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just kind of that weird time of the year. But, yeah, overall doing okay. How about you, man? I like a collared shirt.
Yes, I had a job interview with a great company today, so we'll see how well that goes. Speaking of needing money, we need money right here at the Spanish Announce Table. Hit us up. SpanishAnnounceTable.net. There's a donate link. We also can provide some services for you. We do some media production and voices. If you need some professional voices, hit us up. Aside from that, we also may want to extend if you need a friend. I try to put up a calendar so that we could book and folks could book our services to watch wrestling with them and hang out, crack jokes, have time. Turns out the website we pay for, the free calendar tool, is not as free as they led me to believe. So pause on that. But if you're interested in the interim, hit us up, tableshow@gmail.com. We can discuss rates and whatnot, and we can go from there, right?
And also, on top of that, if you just have a long-form question or story or idea, send it to tableshow@gmail.com, and we'd be glad to read that on air. Past stories included, I believe it was an uncle or a father doing cocaine with... oddly enough, Rowdy Piper.
Yes, Rowdy Piper. By the way, check out this Piper's Pit upgrade that they've done here. I'm here hanging out in Piper's Pit, and you'll see this painting right here. This painting done by a friend of the show, Rob Schamberger. Check him out, robschamberger.com. That's SCH Hamburger. Anyway, Tom, you asked how I was doing. I'm doing well. Haven't gotten anything too crazy. Trying to work, trying to avoid the COVID, like the COVID, and just watching wrestling. Been hammered with the wrestling. A lot to get into, man.
Oh, I tell you what. Yeah, and let's just kick it off with a bit of sad news so then we can get back into the fun silliness of what really pro wrestling is. But before we do that, as I mentioned, there was some pretty monumental news. The passing of one of the icons in pro wrestling, Pat Patterson, the first Intercontinental champion. He was also the godfather to the Royal Rumble match, the right-hand man for Vince McMahon throughout most of his life. Also contributed on screen towards the latter part of his career as one of the Stooges with Gerald Briscoe. Pat Patterson, unfortunately, has passed away. But, Tim, what do you think of Pat Patterson? What comes to mind?
What comes to mind instantly is that from what we know now, so many years removed via like the Bruce Pritchard podcast, all the documentaries, the WWE Network, is that who passed is probably one of the top 5 most influential people in pro wrestling history. if we're going to say Vince McMahon is the most influential person in pro wrestling history from who can influence the business, right? I mean, I think that's probably an easy number one with a bullet. You'd be hard-pressed to come up with too many names outside of Patterson that weren't McMahon or maybe a Jarrett name. You know what I mean? Like, and those are probably falling short of Patterson. Patterson, from what we know, was there every step of the way, was in that short list of people that were in the car rides, and was one of the few that was never let go. You know what I mean? Like Pritchard was let go. I think Briscoe took some time off, but Patterson has been there from the beginning. When you talk about loyal WWE folks, and we did recently with Undertaker, and everybody talked about his loyalty, Patterson would call him a kid. Like it's insane. And then everybody to a T that we've ever heard talk about the industry, when they talk about making matches and the creative aspect of the in-ring match, they will tell you Pat Patterson was the guy who came up with the best endings, that they always consulted Patterson when it was like, this is the match, this is main, like we need something. They would run it by and he would always fix it. Always. So that's interesting. And just, I mean, look, there's good and bad stories that you may hear of Patterson, right? I mean, there's, he's got questionable things in his past, as everybody does from that time frame, but 2-1, you always heard mostly nice things about that guy.
Oh yeah.
Super influential.
You saw it in the outpouring of remembrance in different types of tweets or Instagram posts, from The Rock to Kurt Angle, Triple H, Vince McMahon himself sent out a tweet. So that just shows you the type of monumental figures in the industry that looked up to him, or at least held him in high regard throughout his career. So, yeah, it was very sad to hear. I also thought it was
the Royal Rumble,
right? And that's what I was thinking of, where it's a little bit bittersweet because we're coming up. Obviously the next pay-per-view is going to be TLC, but in January, that starts the WrestleMania season, and the Royal Rumble is his creation. And I know they already have plans, so they were planning it. I don't know how involved he was. But it was somewhat, I think this January is going to be bittersweet to see the Royal Rumble without Pat Patterson, at least having his fingerprints or input into that match. Also, side note, last year, he became the oldest champion in WWE history when he won the 24/7 championship. He's the oldest champion in wrestling history, or WWE wrestling history.
Another thing that comes to mind, and this is morbid in a couple ways, it's a twofold conversation. One, somebody who's probably hit the hardest is Vince McMahon, right? I mean, this is one of his best friends, coworkers, partners in what he would do for the day. You know what I mean? Like, if you talk about people closest to Vince McMahon, he might have spent more time with Patterson than anybody in his family. In fact, I'm going to assume he did.
Right.
So he's probably, I can't imagine the pain, right? And we have to start thinking about, in that regard, what's this going to mean for the pro wrestling industry, and also that, like, McMahon's a similar age. Or older.
Yeah.
I mean, McMahon is not, I don't want to sound like, hey, everybody, let's talk about McMahon's going to die soon, but, like, McMahon is going to die soon, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be here in 5 to 10 years, maybe 5, maybe not, but, like, we are in for some dramatic changes. Like, when we talk about the end of an era, like, this to me is signaling, like, shit.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the first, okay, so now we're having to get new voices in the room. I don't think he was full time, so I think other people have been getting into those rooms with their input, but still,
we're in the gray area.
Right. But yeah, exactly. We're in that weird area where you can't go to Patterson and say, like, oh man, I have 90% of this match just done in 100. Like, it's going to be awesome. I just need to get to 100%. Okay, let me get to Patterson. I'll call him. If he was backstage, I'll go backstage. Now, unfortunately, we can't. One other thing that I wanted to bring up about Pat Patterson that I feel has to be talked about is he was also backstage the first openly gay pro wrestler. So in a time period when obviously that was not necessarily the coolest thing to say, he had to go through his trials and tribulations to get respect in the locker room.
Can you imagine what he had to go through and what he had to do to earn the respect? Because from what we hear from the stories, it was understood and it was told to newbies, hey, he's this, and you're going to be fucking cool with it because we're fucking cool with it. So what he had to do to get that tone set, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how many people he had to kick the shit out of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad, right? From, everything we know nowadays and the empathy that our society has grown into. But, like, that's amazing. And that goes under the radar. I mean, I know Darren Young had a lot of hoopla around him because and Pat Patterson didn't publicly on camera ever say that until Legends House, right?
Yeah,
but it was
Legends
the
House,
secret so it was weird on Legends House because all those people already knew that and had probably had direct conversations with him about it. So, and none of them are good actors, so that was weird, right? Yeah. So, but for him to, to be open in his friend group and like employers, in that time, like you said, coming from 60s, 70s, 80s is unfathomable to me. Like I can't imagine the hardships, the trials, the tribulations, as you said, which they're always together, right? Trials, tribulations.
Always. Never
together.
by themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't imagine. I can't. The life Pat Patterson lived is unlike anyone else's. And I only wish we would have had a Pat Patterson podcast, a book, a something. And
there is a book.
That is a lost opportunity. There is a book, right?
There is a book, so you can pick up the book. But yeah, the spoken word is definitely, at least in our opinions, preferred. So it would have been great to hear from him in a podcast form. Maybe there was something done beforehand that hasn't been released that maybe we'll get to. Who knows? Interviews. That's speculation, right?
Yeah.
But it was also as we transition out of the Pat Patterson unfortunate news, it was also really great to see both NXT and AEW pay the respects to Pat Patterson. You had an homage to Pat Patterson in the Jon Moxley interview before his main event match where he said, "We're going to make him go banana," which was a phrase that Pat Patterson would say. Obviously, NXT kicked off with a moment of silence for Pat Patterson. So it was great to see that on the drop of a hat, they both were going to make time to honor Pat Patterson.
Yes. That NXT video was awesome. The little touch of them starting with the song that he always liked to sing.
The Frank Sinatra.
Again, that showed the like emotional touch. The videos they put up for a dead wrestler that was still an important part are those video montages, but that one had the, like, you knew that guy was family, right?
Yeah.
This guy wasn't like valued employee, meant something to the industry. This was, they lost a brother, they lost a father, they lost an uncle. Yeah, that one's going to be a hard hit. But yes, AEW in a heated battle. I mean, we're not saying this is an all-out war between these companies, but like they're not buddies, right? Are AEW and WWE, and they both managed to, kind of play nice and give the proper reverence to the man that, Yeah.
Well, and there's also close friends of Pat Patterson that work for AEW. You have a Jim Ross. You have people that were there, like a Miro, who was Rusev in WWE. You had Chris Jericho. There were Jon Moxley, as I mentioned. So there were people there who knew Pat Patterson personally. So obviously it was good that Tony Khan and leadership gave them the opportunity to acknowledge him. So let's transition now into the AEW Dynamite that was last night. For new listeners, we do a recap of pro wrestling, but we dig a little bit deeper into AEW Dynamite. That is currently our favorite pro wrestling show. Things could change and we could do a transition into NXT. But for the time being, AEW is our flagship program that we center around. So let's do a recap of last night's Winter is Coming special episode of AEW Dynamite. Before we get into the...
Winter came all over our faces.
Yes. So let's do that really quick before we go into the match breakdown. Winter is coming. AEW Dynamite. What was your lasting impression of the episode?
Questions. A lot of questions, which is perfect, right? Perfect. Some of the questions I'm not, and we'll get into it. I'm a little leery on one. I'm probably against the mainstream on one of the big questions I have, and the other big question I have is very intriguing, but also a tad worrisome. So I am excited, but worried, if that's a good sum up.
Or as a great podcast once phrased, you could be positive and patient.
I am Exactly that. I am positive but patient because on
We'll-
two major things, right?
Yes,
and I'm
and
sure
we will
you
get
know what
into
they
this.
are without even talking about it because we're
Yes.
great friends, you and I, all right?
We are. You are my only friend. What? Okay, hey, so let's kick it off. The first match was the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal. Now, I'll just be completely transparent right off the top. I don't exactly know what this means. Maybe I missed it in the explanation. I understand that the final two people we're going to compete in a match next week. I believe, and this is where maybe you can help me fill in the details. Does that mean that the person who wins the match next week gets a championship opportunity? That's where, or are they just wearing a ring?
Get that. They get the ring. Remember, he got the ring, but I don't think he ever got. Did he get his championship opportunity because of that?
I don't
MJF,
believe
did he
so,
ever get a
no.
championship? Like he faced Cody, but it wasn't for a title, right? And
No.
it was,
Right.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just like you're a stud. It's kind of like King of the Ring.
Okay.
Kind of.
Right. It's King of the Ring, an AEW version.
On this
of it.
day,
Okay.
you were the stud. On this
Right.
day, you stood atop the mountain. And
Okay.
we do the, right?
Right. Just like King Corbin wore the crown for as long
Right.
as he wants to
And
until the
MJF,
next one.
We forgot about that. They didn't feature that as a thing. Somebody could. It's a hard prop to carry for a whole year and make storylines out of it. Is a ring
hard.
that means nothing.
Yeah,
But
it's
somebody
a
could do
hard-
something with it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to elevate and make into storylines. But I will say, MJF did handle the prop of the ring very well. He would put it on his finger, Wardlow would take it off, things of that nature. So he handled the diamond ring really well. But let's get into it. So we had a multitude of different wrestlers in here. Matt Hardy, Hangman Adam Page, Matt Sydal, Private Party, Scorpio Sky, Miro, some Dark Order guys, Orange Cassidy, MJF. The last two standing was reigning and defending Diamond or
The
Dynamite
Diamond Stud.
Diamond Battle Royal stud MJF, and then everyone's favorite Orange Cassidy. But there's a lot of stuff that happened in between this match. What'd you think of it as we got to the final two?
First, before we get into that, I'm going to take the liberties. We need to bring the term stud back a little more, right? We need to refer to
Diamond
people as stud more. Like in your everyday, be like, that guy over there, he guy's a stud, right? Just, you know what I mean? Everybody gets this like, yeah, that dude, yeah, he's a stud. All right, so just feel free, take that with you, marinate it, right? Like let it sleep on it, right? Just figure out a way to just work it in. Everybody listening to me, watching us on the YouTube, just kind of easing that one in. But I like that these two are going to have a great match. MJF, Orange Cassidy. I don't think we've got this yet, have we?
No, I
have
not.
two-
I have not seen these two wrestle each
These
other
are two in
a
AEW
one-on-one
that are
match.
these are the two in the AEW that are I think are really the top tier, cream of the crop at telling that in-ring story where I don't have to give you any of the backstory. We can turn on this match and you can get it. Orange Cassidy's a guy who's super cool, can't be bothered. MJF is a colossal prick, and those two are going to work that way in the match, and those two styles are going to work great together. MJF's going to get pissed off, you know what I mean? And then he's going to be fucking pounding him a couple times, but then he's going to get away. It's going to be great. I think that was a perfect choice with two hot names right now. The rest of it was good. I mean, it was full of action. There was cool spots, but it felt like every other battle royal, which, we're coming up on the biggest of them. So,
So what I will give this battle royal credit for is it told stories within the match. So one thing that we got to see is Hangman Adam Page almost get eliminated. Dark Order was there to save him. Right? Puts him back into the match. Now, quickly after he was eliminated, but for that moment in time, his ass was saved by the Dark Order, which they're trying to recruit him. So I like that. Also, we saw MJF eliminate by accident Sammy Guevara, which later in the episode we see maybe Sammy thought that was on purpose. So I like that there was still stories told here. Matt Sydal was eliminated by Shawn Spears, which if you turn back the clock, and when Matt Sydal debuted in the Battle Royal, the Casino Battle Royal, he eliminated Shawn Spears. So we got the receipt on that. So I did enjoy the little details that they told while still giving us MJF versus Orange Cassidy next week. So as we mentioned, those are the two that we can expect to see on next week's Dynamite as they compete to be the Dynamite. I think MJF, I think MJF is going to retain. I think he's going to do the I am the 2-time. And I think similar to what you said, there's really hard stories to tell with just a diamond ring. So if you can say I'm the 2-time of this, then you're elevating it to make it more than what it is.
Furthermore, Orange Cassidy is going to have an even harder time selling a storyline around that because it's not cool.
Yeah,
you know
the only thing I could think of is if Orange Cassidy does get the victory and MJF is so insulted that it was Orange Cassidy who has the diamond stud, and each week it's almost this comedy act where Orange Cassidy's like, I don't know where the ring is, and MJ's like, how the fuck can this guy lose my ring? Like, you idiot. And he's just like, what?
I think I left that. It's on. It's resting on my phone charger back in the locker room.
You know, next week when we get to Cincinnati, he could just say those things like next week when we get to Cincinnati.
I think
I'll
I left
get
that
ring
on catering. It was kind of like I was dipping in fondue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like, fondue? There's not fondue at the catering. You'd be like, at the catering you're at. Right?
Yeah,
just a little, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so it could be something silly like that to where we're going to take this a different angle. But I think to elevate what this battle royal is year after year, I think saying MJF is the 2-time winner then makes people say like, well, fuck that. You're not winning it again.
And if I'm thinking of who on the roster is going to carry around a ring that says I'm the fucking best, MJF way more comes to mind before Orange Cassidy does.
Definitely. So after that, we did get another match. It was, I believe, for the first time ever. And again, we don't fact check here, but it was.
They said it was.
Right. So it was Frankie Kazarian taking on the leader of the Inner Circle, Chris Jericho. And this had some hijinks to finish it up. But we did see with the Judas effect, Chris Jericho picking up the victory. At the end, post-match, Chris Jericho, tired of the infighting, said next week is an ultimatum. Either we figure this shit out or we're done forever. What say you about the match? And then what do you think about that post-match speech?
The match we knew was going to be solid. I mean, Jericho's good at what he does. Kazarian, as we discussed, Fountain of Youth. There's even a YouTube video about it from last week's episode, which you can find on our YouTube channel. Spanish Announce Tube on the YouTube. SpanishAnnounceTable.net if you need the links. But I wasn't expecting a barn burner, to borrow a tired cliche, but we got a solid match out of that. Again, it's neat knowing, hey, here's some grizzled veterans who have never found a way in the ring together. Here we go. Here's names that I've loved over the years for various reasons, and here we go. And then the ending, that one intrigued me of the like, hey, we're going to figure this out or we're done forever. I don't think we're done forever yet. So...
Okay.
But why would they say that, right? So I could be wrong, all right? I'm like, there's no way, but I'm guessing there's a way, right? Because they're saying it, and they don't say things in pro wrestling for no reason, right? So here we go. What do you think's going to happen?
So first off, I thought the match was really good. I like you said, I don't think I'm going to rewatch this match and tell my friends you have to watch Kazarian versus Jericho. But again, they didn't embarrass themselves or do anything silly.
Or you tell your friends, hey, watch this match. That guy, Frankie Kazarian, he's 75 years old.
Right. Yeah, that would be the only reason I would go back and watch this match off the top of my head.
I think that's right? We don't fact check, but I think that's legit.
Yeah.
73.
Yeah, I think... You know what? Okay. I'm going to go with it. That feels right. Yeah,
right.
That feels right.
Shave it off right at 73. If you're watching the YouTube video, if you're only listening to the audio podcast, you can't see me shaving it off at 73. But if you're watching YouTube, you see me shaving it off. You know what I mean?
Yes. So post-match, the ultimatum.
Just shears.
You were there a couple weeks ago. The ultimatum. Yeah. The ultimatum. I think this is the end of the Inner Circle. I think they ran their course. They did the Manitoba Melee. They did the Stadium Stampede match. They've done all of the things that a faction can do. And I think what we can do out of this, because they showed, AEW that is, showed that they can tell nuance better than anyone right now in pro wrestling. with
True.
the Hangman Adam Page,
Facts.
Kenny Omega. Are they friends? Are they not? Right? So if you do the ultimatum, say this is the end of the Inner Circle, it comes out that Wardlow and MJF, this was their goal the entire time, was to break up the Inner Circle. They actually never fucking wanted to be in the Inner Circle. They always wanted to get in and then tear it down from the inside. Then we can have Chris Jericho say, "You rat bastard, how dare you?" And then we get MJF, Chris Jericho, but with some real heat.
Well, if you notice when he said that, when he was like, either we're or we're done, MJF was like, like he kind of half smiled, and I was like,
yeah,
ooh, that was intriguing, right? Like he was like, all right, fuck it, I don't give a shit.
Right, and so we can tell that story with MJF was trying to tear it down this entire time. And then after the feud, right? So Chris Jericho, let's just say, let's fantasy book this real quick. So Chris Jericho comes out on the other end of a feud with MJF where it's not dinners anymore. It's a blood feud. Chris Jericho comes out as the victor. Well, then now he wants to bring back the Inner Circle, but feelings have been hurt. So maybe Ortiz and Santana don't necessarily want to do round 2 of the Inner Circle. And that nuance, like they did with Adam Page and Kenny Omega, we can get a few weeks of Chris Jericho babyface this time, saying, let's get the band back together. And the band's like, you know what? I'm kind of great on my solo career. Sammy Guevara says, I'm the TNT champion now. I don't need the Inner Circle anymore. I think that's where we're going to go with this storyline.
Yeah, I kind of want, like... like, what if Sammy turns on Chris and him and MJF go off and they're teamed up? You know what I mean? Like something that we're like, oh shit, like let's get a Russo swerve on this, right? Like let's.
Well, if anything from this episode told us anything about the future, I
Russo
think so.
Swerve, can I? Yeah. I'm copywriting that. Spanish Announce Table trademark.
There
Russo
you go.
Swerve.
So I think from this episode telling us anything moving forward is that anything can happen in AEW, so that wouldn't be a shocker, right? But yeah, that's where I think we're gonna go with this ultimatum next week. All right, so after this segment, and I have the match breakdown on my cheat sheet here, but I do not have the backstage segment, so I'm just gonna bring this up now. Backstage, we saw the Young Bucks being interviewed by Marvez. And the Acclaim comes out. One of them says, your book sucks. The other one does a John Cena rap. I like that Matt Jackson was like, didn't we do this gimmick already?
Yes, that was okay. So that was the best thing I've heard from the Young Bucks ever. That line where, because he was just like, didn't somebody else already do this gimmick? Like that was perfect because it was John Cena's pace. It was his kind of rhyming style. It was great. Anyway.
But side note, that was a pretty good burn he had.
It was.
Looking at each other's dicks, all the things. I thought it was a pretty good burn.
I loved it. So I'd seen like the promos of them coming out of dark, having one matches, and I'm like, all right, but Jesus, we're like you had mentioned, Jesus, we did this with the one tag team, and then the next, and now here. But this one, I'm like, oh, you got my attention. That right there got my attention. Now it's up to them. Here, I'm not this lord of pro wrestling fandom, but I do have a podcast. Meh. So my podcast says it's up to you now. They could take fire if he continues and dropping. If he does Dr. Thugonomics 2020, I'm here for it. If he's cool with it, right?
Right.
And if that elevates them, then so be it. Because yes, they have a bloated tag team division that's good, but that can lead to somebody taking the world by storm. Because here's where all the eyes are, right?
Definitely. So yeah, the segment ended with TH2 actually jumping the Young Bucks, and then the Acclaim kind of just shit talking while TH2 were putting the boots to the Young Bucks, and then they were chased off by Christopher Daniels with the chair, and then Kazarian post match was still with the towel on the back of his neck, chases the two teams off. Maybe we get some type of SCU versus Acclaimed next week, or maybe we see that on a dark. But yeah, so it was interesting to see two new teams kind of taking it to the Young Bucks. And right now the Young Bucks kind of feel in flux with nothing really going on. So I'm interested.
Here's what happens. I think they're both good. Like TH2 and the Acclaimed will help each other a little bit because they're like, fuck the Young Bucks, right? And
there we go. Tim, are you there?
Hey, yeah.
All right. So
this will be fun. I don't even know if this is like I don't know. It just crashed, but we're still here. We'll see if all this records. I don't know if we're going to have a fucking podcast this week. We're going to find out. It's all going to be fun, but we're going to keep going.
Yeah, well,
it says recording.
Yeah.
It says recording. I don't fucking know.
Right.
I don't fucking know, but we're going to find out.
Yeah. So anyhow, TH2, yeah, like you said, I think we're going to get something where the two of them help each other out, but then eventually they'll say fuck each other. Not literally, but they'll say we don't want your help.
And all this is great. Young Bucks are going to put these two teams over. They're both going to look like $1 million, but Young Bucks gets a victory over two outstanding teams. They're still champs, gives them credibility, gets these guys over. That's all this amounts to, right?
Definitely. I would think so. But hey, that's still better than just 50-50 booking of FTR versus Young Bucks for the 10th time. So
it's good
I'm okay
storytelling.
with it. Right.
But if I can be honest, TH2, I don't understand. Like, I get it. You're potheads, but like,
I don't know what they are.
What?
I think they're
cool.
futuristic hackers.
Hey man, I'm down, but like,
they need some fine tuning with their character development. All right, after that segment, we got the women's match, Britt Baker versus Layla Hirsch. Layla Hirsch needs to be in Team Taz. I think it just has to be. She is a 4'11" Taz. She's awesome. She flips people. She suplexes them all. Team Taz needs a female presence. Let's put Layla Hirsch. I've seen it online. I'm 100% behind it. Put Layla Hirsch in Team Taz. Make her a little assassin where she just throws bitches everywhere. We did see Britt Baker get the victory due to some shenanigans from Rebel or Reba, whatever you want to say. It was a fun match. Again, women's matches are always fine, and then we move on. However, post-match, we did see Thunder Rosa beat up Britt Baker. I do like that they gave a little bit of story behind why these two don't like each other, where Britt Baker's like, you're an NWA. You don't belong here. Almost Mean Girls-esque. And Thunder Rosa's like, I'll beat your fucking ass. So I'd like now that we have an understanding of why these two girls don't like each other. But post-match and post-segment, I left thinking Layla Hirsch needs to be standing next to Brian Cage, and they just do mixed tag matches where they just throw every fucking person out of the ring.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to any of that. The Team Taz thing, I like it, and I like because, again, it's a bunch of badass dudes going around doing badass things, and like you said, we can add a badass, add the gender terms. In 2020, as it sounds, they're starting to be passe. I just want to find like a generic term to mean any person, but like, here comes, as you're saying, Hirsch, could be cool. There's still like the storyline with Cody is cool because of the Taz Cody personal thing, but beyond that, like Team Taz could use some better direction of like a purpose. Like Taz is, I like the idea of like, hey, the storyline behind hey, we want this title to be recognized. If we're ultimately going to do that, if there's a payoff, right? The FTW title becomes the title. But if not, there needs to be something, right? He needs to be chasing the titles, and he needs to be the Bobby Heenan kind of guy or something. But just right now, it feels kind of in flux. It's like, yeah, but why?
Yeah. To me, the only thing that's missing on Team Taz, and this is not an indictment on the character himself, I think he, as a solo act, shoot him to the moon. But Ricky Starks sticks out like a sore thumb because you've got Powerhouse Will Hobbs or Powerhouse Hobbs, whatever.
Powerhouse Hobbs. It's so good. Powerhouse Hobbs.
Yeah, Powerhouse Hobbs. You got Brian Cage, who's a fucking, action figure. We got Taz, who's notorious as one of the meanest, dirtiest, grumpiest bastards, there is. And then you got Ricky Starks, who does like the modeling poses and wears the $900, loafers and stuff. It's like,
yeah, it looks like a new Rick the Model Martel. That should be his gimmick. The new Rick the Model Martel, right?
Well, I think it is, but it just doesn't mesh with Team Taz.
But he should go all in. He should go in as like, I'm a fucking Paris model. Like, fucking just go full bore.
Well, he does the pose. And again, it's like, I like him. I think he's awesome. I think he's the future of AEW top tier talent going forward into 2021 and beyond. I just don't feel like he fits in with this group. That's what I'm saying. Layla Hirsch fits in with this group. Ricky Starks, in my opinion, doesn't. But let's get into the next segment. Speaking of Team Taz, it was Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks taking on Darby Allin, the TNT champion, and Cody Rhodes. And let's just get to it. Post-match, we saw the debut in AEW, called first here on Spanish Announce Table, of Sting. I called it first. I said his merchandise was missing on WWE. He hasn't been mentioned. There's no one talking about him. And now he's liking all of this other pro wrestling stuff that's not WWE. That's the telltale sign that I'm out of here, going somewhere else. Where else better than Cody Rhodes and AEW, who are falling in love with him? We got the iconic "It's Sting" from Tony Schiavone, which made everyone just, cry a happy tear when he said it. Sting is in AEW. He gave a long stare down to Arn Anderson, Dustin Rhodes, Cody Rhodes, and then lastly, and the most longingly look of maybe discontent or admiration towards Darby Allin. What did you think?
I think we're getting Sting wrestling again, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
And whatever. Okay, so we're going to get Sting versus Darby Allin. We're going to get Sting versus Cody. Like, that is happening. Sting versus Cody, if nothing else is happening. A couple things. Look, if Sting is there because he's involved and he's bringing faces to the television set and he's a behind-the-scenes dude, great, amazing, 100%. And so I'm going to forgive a match or two because if that's what Sting wants to do because he's a wrestler and sure, whatever, it's going to happen. If Hogan showed up, he'd want a wrestle match, they'd give it to him, right? Like that's just how it goes. But this isn't what has been exciting about AEW, so that was a bit of a miss for me. Two, the performance of it was a bit of a miss for me. Why did Team Taz just powder out at the sight of Sting? They were scared of Sting, the 50, 60-year-old guy. Like, what?
Well, I will give them credit because, yes, it kind of didn't make sense that Powerhouse Hobbs would be scared of 61-year-old Sting. However, he did have a baseball bat. I will give him a little bit of the motherfucker had a baseball bat. So now, I'll say that.
If I can also, we keep saying we don't want to shit on WWE each week, but we're going to shit on WWE. Remember when WWE had Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in the company? And they managed to not do Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. Now,
back forward, in the 90s. Yeah.
Now, fast forward to, remember when WWE had Undertaker and Sting in the same company and found a way to not fucking do Undertaker and Sting? Mm-hmm. They fucking find a way to shoot themselves in the foot all the time. If Sting only did the one thing in WWE, it would have been a match with Undertaker, and they would have paid out for himself, and they found a way to not do it. Right. And I didn't want to see it in the time they did it, but they still managed to not. AEW has a better shot at realizing the Undertaker-Sting match than WWE ever will, and I don't get it. So here we are with Sting in AEW. I'm positive but patient because I think Sting will catch the eye of the older fan that goes, I keep hearing about this AEW. Now Sting's there. Let me check it out. Sting will move the needle even more than Jericho. And Jericho is, I'm going to say, a top 5 all-time talent now. Yeah. So I may do a TikTok about this one, though. When we talked about Bret Hart not being in the top whatever, I'm not putting Sting in the top whatever either for a myriad of reasons. Sting could have been anybody else, if you ask me. You could have put anybody else in a face paint up in a rafters, and they would have told the same story. You could have put Sting in face paint that went, and would have told the same story he ever told. He never told a story I gave a shit about other than that NWO story, and I don't think he told it. He didn't do shit but go,
no. Okay.
I don't like Sting. So I don't. And we're going to get T-shirt Sting and AEW. And here we go. Cool. It's going to bring the marks, and that's fine. Like, I'm fine with that. But, what I may fast forward through a Sting match when it comes to play.
Okay, so you're wrong on everything. Let's just start with the first step. So I want to see, as a Sting fan, him get a good final match. Because if you know that his last match was he couldn't complete it because of spinal stenosis with Seth Rollins, that is not the way Sting should go out, right?
Points.
So,
I'll give you points for that.
Right.
This is like, what's that ESPN show, Beyond the Horn or whatever? Like,
Around the Horn.
For that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, Around the Horn. Yeah, you get points for that.
So I do want to see one last match for Sting because I know he can do better than what he did with Seth Rollins. And it wasn't Seth Rollins' fault. It was just the circumstances of the move. It was just the circumstances of the move, right?
Or it was the old guy taking the move.
Right. So I want to see one last match with Sting. That's point one. Point two, I then want him to transition like the other legends in AEW. I'm totally fine with the multi-year contract, but if you do your one match with Darby Allin and then you transition to what Arn Anderson's doing, what Tully Blanchard's doing, not there yet, but I eventually see Matt Hardy doing, where it's I'm here so that casual 90s fan knows about pro wrestling. You watch me, but I'm here to show you this person.
Tom.
That's what I hope he does.
Tom. We're going to get broken Matt Hardy versus Sting.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, as a cinematic match, I can definitely see that. I hope not. But again, they're pretty smart.
But that may be better.
Right.
A cinematic match between these two may actually be better than anything Sting does in the ring. Anyway.
Yeah. So my hope here is that we see Sting challenge Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. It's a good, fine match, and Darby Allin gets the victory. Sting says, I'm now passing the torch to you. You are the 2020 version of Sting. Go on your way, right?
This is the new guy who says nothing and wears face paint. All right, everybody clap for that fucking...
Yeah, yeah. Now, you're completely wrong. Side note, before we get back into AEW Dynamite, winter is coming. You're completely wrong. The reason why the Sting storyline was so iconic against the NWO is because he was the backbone of WCW throughout the entire 1990s. Ric Flair loses.
But what
Arn Anderson loses. He was there with the face paint.
But what I'm saying is nothing about his personality or his character was anything unique to him. You could have put you in that fucking position and it would have came across better. You could have put anybody who could fucking act a lick and it would have come across. The most fucking entertaining thing Sting ever did for me was Joker Sting. Fucking deal with that.
Oh, you're completely wrong. No, the payoff was there because of the history of the character. He was the backbone, and here he is watching a company that turned his back, turned their back on him.
He was the fucking guy who was there. Happenstance, he was the guy who was there forever, but that could have been the fucking Brooklyn Brawler.
Right. No. Yes, I understand what you're saying, where anyone could have stood. Yes, but you don't get that the reason he stood was because the company he helped be the foundation of turned their back, and then the NWO is killing the thing he loves. It was a man torn apart. Oh my God. It's the greatest story of all time, from War Games to Starrcade, 96 to 97. No. It's the greatest storyline of all time.
The greatest wrestling storyline told was Awesome McMahon.
No. Oh my God. No. It was fun. It was the funnest storyline of all time.
Funnest, yeah.
But it was, go back and look, and there's so much shit that made no fucking sense. And like, to your credit, where you're like, anyone could have done that. Anyone could have went in and gave stunners to people and then just left. Hey, let me grab your head and sit on my ass, and then I'm leaving and drinking beer. Anyone could have done that. Anyhow, we'll get back onto that. We'll maybe do rival
you changed
TikTok
my mind.
videos.
I'm excited for all the stinger splashes we're going to get. It's going to be fucking great.
Yeah, it is going to be great. We're going to get a coffin drop on Sting, which is going to be the end of his career.
So many sharpshooters. I'm so excited.
No. Do you not hear what I just said? We're going to get the coffin drop finish from Darby Allin onto Sting, which then ends the career. That is perfect. Oh, right there. Love it. So,
to a guy who said he's not going to be doing this in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, things change. I All right, so now, again, I don't have any more backstage segments, but as I mentioned, Jon Moxley cuts a promo saying he's going to go out there to defend his title. He does the homage to Pat Patterson, which was a great touch. Before I do move on to the next match, though, we did do a poll, and I wanted to share this with you. I asked on @TableShow, are you excited to see Sting in AEW? And with 67% of the vote, we got yes.
Ooh, so, I mean, a third of the people here are along my lines of thinking. I see you.
I mean, that's the wrong way to see
I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
But the 2/3 aren't.
No, we just got work to do. We got a lot more convincing. We got to make them see the light.
All right, so then let's now get into the main event.
Look, he was so boring. In fact, they could just put another dude in the same face paint, and you guys thought it was him.
Oh, you are so insulting. You are so insulting.
You guys thought it was him. You turned your back because you thought somebody else was him because he's fucking undistinguishable.
No, you're the worst. Go walk into the ocean. But before you do, let's finish this podcast. So before the main event.
We don't even know if this podcast is recorded. Fuck, for all we know. It can start halfway through for all we know.
No, I've got it recording, at least my side. They'll hear one great side of the conversation.
Your side recording?
Well, I'm recording mine.
Hey, we're fine. We've got backup audio. We've got
we're good.
We're professionals.
Somewhat.
If you pay us. If you pay us, we're professionals.
That is the definition. Okay, so before the main event, we asked before they lock up, who wins the championship match tonight? Jon Moxley or Kenny Omega? And again, with 67% of the vote, it went to Kenny Omega, which 67% of the audience was correct there with their voting. We did see Kenny Omega.
Those people were right.
Right. We did see Kenny Omega become the new AEW champion under some shenanigans. Now, let's just get right to it. Yeah. First off, the match itself was violent, was very hard-hitting. They did this before with their, no-holds-barred match from a couple pay-per-views ago or a few pay-per-views ago. So we knew that the in-ring match was going to be awesome, and it was. But let's get into what we're really here to talk about. Kenny Omega gets injured, and coming from the commentary booth is the Impact Vice President, Don Callis, who's a good friend of Kenny Omega. Through some type of distraction from the ref, ends up throwing the microphone to Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega uses this microphone, stabs or punches, however you want to say it, Jon Moxley in the head. That causes bleeding from Jon Moxley. Kenny Omega then gets the one-winged angel. He wins the AEW championship. Him and Don Callis celebrate, and then they go and leave as quick as they came, and everyone's pissed. We see Tony Khan jump up, and he's mad. We see a long line of wrestlers throwing their hands up, and then Marvez gets there and says, "Hey, explain yourself." And I'm paraphrasing here, but then Don Callis says, "Hey, tune in Tuesday and you'll have your answer." And then Marvez responds with, "We air on Wednesdays." And he goes, "Yeah, Impact is on Tuesday." So what did you think of all this?
Well, and he said, Impact is on Tuesday. Kenny and I will explain everything. So that is the key phrase. Kenny Omega is apparently going to show up on Impact Wrestling with the AEW World title. So now we've seen them interacting with NWA. Mm-hmm. We've seen them interacting with Impact Wrestling. Are they buying these companies? Are we?
I don't know. Well, we're also hearing name drops of New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I don't know.
Here's the thing. AEW did for Impact Wrestling something that Impact Wrestling has not been able to do for Impact Wrestling for half a decade.
Since Kurt Angle.
And that's make me have to tune in to Impact Wrestling. Mm-hmm. What the fuck is this about?
So let me tell you my 2 cents about this whole segment. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Right. Okay.
Well, so I'm positive and patient. I'm positive and patient because they have given me no reason to doubt their storytelling moving forward. Again, one of the best storylines of 2020, in my opinion.
Seeds planted weeks ago.
Yes. And so to me, again, what I was going to say there is the best storyline of 2020 for me is Hangman Adam Page, Kenny Omega, the tag team into the singles careers. So I have no reason to doubt what AEW can do with their storytelling, especially at this level. Here's why I didn't necessarily like it. One, if we're going to tell the story of AEW as we do with WWE title changes, right? The most iconic title changes from Shawn Michaels to Stone Cold, from Triple H, or from JBL to John Cena, all of these iconic moments of the title being passed to the new star of the promotion, right? This now is always going to be tied to another promotion that's not yours. Right? We're going to see Chris Jericho getting that first ever victory over Hangman Adam Page. That's the inaugural one, right? Then we're going to see the amazing match between Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho. Jon Moxley becomes champion. And then we're going to get Don Callis, Executive Vice President of Impact Wrestling, standing there ringside. And in 5 years, if this relationship goes sour, that's always going to be there. So I don't know if I would have tied the championship change with another promotion. So that's where I'm a little bit apprehensive. Now, 2, I am not a fan of go see another person's show. I'm just not. I'm not the Vince McMahon, we don't say anything about any other company, it's only WWE. Look, I get it. What this feels like to me is a lot like Vince McMahon helping ECW in the late 90s when we saw Paul Heyman and the ECW guys invade.
This feels like them. Yeah, they're throwing a bone because, hey, coronavirus is hitting everybody hard.
Right.
We're still making some money. Hey, remember these guys exist is what it feels like.
Right. So I'm okay with it, but again, I just don't know if I would have tied such a monumental moment, one of your faces of the promotion. He's a goddamn executive vice president of the real legit company to someone else. So that just made me sour. Again, the second point I was going to make there, I'm not going, like, I know you said you want to tune into Impact Wrestling. I don't have the channel, so I can't.
I'm not going to do it live. I'm going to find the clip, of course. But I've never thought I've got to check out that thing that happened on Impact Wrestling in half a decade.
That's true. I will give him that. The other thing, though, that I think I understand from a fan's perspective, oh my God, now think of all the crazy fantasy matchups we can do. We can do the Good Brothers versus the Young Bucks. We can do Ethan Page versus Hangman Adam Page. We can do all these things. But what I think happens when you do that, when you start to open Pandora's box, is then nothing becomes important.
Right.
The championship now is on everyone's show.
Right.
What do I care?
You just made a real life SmackDown versus Raw. Like nobody
Well, but it can be cool if it's a one-off, but if you're going to continue this partnership and Hangman Adam Page shows up on Impact Wrestling, well then what he does on AEW Dynamite might not be as important as what he does on Impact. So what are we doing with the stories?
I like the idea of the reality aspect, like you said, where I'm not a fan of hey, go check out so-and-so's show, but we're not denying their existence.
Right.
This is like boxing. There's a couple organizations. These people exist in this one. These people exist in this one. Hey, well, there may be a little bit of crossover here where two folks meet up, and we're friendly folks, so we'll work business, and we're two promoters that know how to get paid working with another promoter. Cool. If that's what this is, okay, I guess. Impact Wrestling is never one I would have chosen. They're weird. We've discussed it.
There's a murder.
AEW is catching fire with the young, hip crowd in that, like, they're new. They've got young, hip, cool guys who know what young, hip, cool things are. I don't know that Impact Wrestling is that. They're very niche, if you will, right? So now the different aspect that you didn't touch on is me as a business. If I'm going to promote another business as I go along, I'm now kind of tied to that business in the public's eye, right? Like, and so they're going to now think of me in the light of this company when they view them. And I don't know that AEW should be viewed in the light that Impact Wrestling is. Like, they're just not the same in any way that I can think of. Don Callis is good. He's been around for a long time. I'm sure he's a great resource. Again, if you told me we're absolving Impact Wrestling because Anthem Sports, has realized, hey, this isn't paying off the way we thought it would. Access TV's like, sure, we'll just air the replay of AEW, and they make a deal, and you guys take Impact, whatever, right? Or that's the second show, right? It's now AEW Impact instead of Dynamite, and they've got a secondary show, and it's on Access TV. Okay, I'll feel you there. That's cool if that's where something like this were to lead, but I don't think that's what we're getting either. I think it's what we said. These guys are friends, and they're trying to say AEW's come in as we're the indie scene given a new stage, and so we're gonna help show the indie scene as we take this stage, and so they're making good on that conceptual ideology that they had, maybe, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, possibly, but yeah, where's the
I'm right.
payoff?
I'm totally right. Say I'm right.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right.
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I'm glad
But
you
what I was going to
admit
get
that.
at is,
That's good.
it's big of me. I know. I'm a very understanding and captivating person. But what I was going to say
appreciate it.
is, I just don't know the payoff. Because when does the partnership end? Are we just going to do some arbitrary December 1 of 2021? We're done, or do we just keep blending? And again, when you blend, to me, that dilutes the importance of one show. I am tuning in to Dynamite. I love Dynamite. If you do a one-off where Kenny Omega shows up on Impact and just comes back and never goes back again, okay, it was at one time. Hey, now I saw the North, or now I saw the Motor City Machine Guns back again. I might go back to Impact when I have some time. But my number one priority, is Dynamite. I don't want to see stories on Dynamite being told on any other show. I don't watch Breaking Bad and they say, hey, Chicago PD helped save one of the guys, and now I'm supposed to go watch Chicago PD to get my storyline payoff on Breaking Bad. That's just not... Crossover episodes are good in singular events, but not continuation. Yeah. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, just that. Exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so I watch AEW Dynamite. I don't know... I don't fact check here on the show. We don't fact check. So I don't know Nielsen, and I don't know how DVRs work, but I know how I work and how a large portion of folks that I've talked to work. I'm not watching this live. I've got a DVR. I use YouTube TV, free plug for them, and I watch it when I've got a moment. I might watch 10 minutes, 15 minutes, fast forward a little bit, watch another chunk, go do the dishes, watch another chunk, right? So if now you're telling me, okay, we're showing up on Impact Wrestling, well, fuck. Okay, now I got to find Impact Wrestling. Oh, it's not on there. Okay, I know where to get wrestling online, right? Whether, if you were watching the YouTube video, you could see me winking the camera. I know where to get something that maybe I don't pay for a subscription for. So, okay, I'm going to seek that out. But what I am not going to do is what you think I'm going to do and watch the whole fucking show start to end. I'm going to fast forward until I see Kenny Omega in the fucking ring. And that's all I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
So, why are we doing this?
Yeah. I will say this to wrap up and kind of put a bow on this conversation here. I will say, I will give him credit for a shocking moment. If you go back a few weeks ago to Tony Khan saying, we're going to shake the pro wrestling world, and we just got Pac, and that Pac is great, but that wasn't necessarily the payoff. Well, I think now he can tell everyone to go royally fuck themselves, because this was the payoff. This is pretty monumental from a standpoint of storytelling. Again, I might not agree with it, but it's something I'm going to remember for a while. I just don't know if I would have had a title change with someone, again, not in the promotion, standing there when I show the lineage of this belt in 10 years. I don't know if that's going to be as great as everyone thinks it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I hope, like what you said, maybe this is a play that AEW is just going to buy Impact Wrestling. I'm totally okay with that part. But we shall see. Again, positive and patient. We are AEW fans. We do like AEW Dynamite more than anything else right now, but we shall see where it goes.
Here's another idea. We say, okay, we do this thing. Kenny Omega's over here. Him and Don Callis are a thing. Don Callis shows up on he's Kenny Omega's fucking guy, helping him. We constantly mention Impact, but that's the last we've ever get of this. He's over here, whatever. We just get Don Callis a little bit. Cool, but what that leads to is maybe a YouTube show, another Dark, where we get that Impact versus AEW guys. Okay, if you want to do a little over-the-top content promoting other folks, I would way more appreciate that, right? If I'm sitting at home oh man, I wish wrestling was on tonight. Oh, I can pull up AEW's YouTube. They're going to have that Impact versus Dynamite showdown. And, you know what I mean? Like one wrestler from each is going to wrestle on YouTube for an hour. Great, right? I would love that. I don't like what you're doing here with this. Maybe you have a chance. I'm going to watch. If you do something super fucking badass and cool on Impact, I'm going to give you props. But
right. Well, eat
it's
some
going to
crow
take
and say this was
significant.
great.
It's going to take something significant.
But going back to this episode, I thought it was monumental. Again, Sting with his debut, the title change to Kenny Omega, then Kenny Omega essentially telling the AEW promotion in which he is a executive vice president on, and that's not peeking behind the curtain. They've told us that on the television show. Is interesting. You also had some emerging stars. One thing that I hope AEW does keep going with, though, is the doubling down on the future, right? We had Jungle Boy in here. We had Sammy Guevara in here. We had Orange Cassidy. We had MJF. I don't want this to be TNA where it's in my main event. It's Sting and John Moxley and Chris Jericho. Like, those are just WWE guys. I know that they've done more, John Moxley and Chris Jericho, but you understand what I'm saying? TNA did it's Booker T versus Scott Steiner versus Kurt Angle. And you're like, well,
yeah, and that thought
where's
process
the future?
That thought process is, hey, you could watch these guys over here now. And I get what you think that means. Right. And that would mean something if they were telling, again, meaningful storylines over here. I don't care who it is. If it's Chris Jericho, cool. If it's Booker T, cool. If it's Sammy Guevara, cool. As long as you're telling me a cool fucking storyline. The odds that you're going to tell me a cool storyline with a Booker T and a Chris Jericho are dwindling that I've seen 500 fucking storylines with these folks. So I would suggest it's probably not those guys. And it's probably a Sammy Guevara. It's probably what's that group that we just, I forgot their name. The, not Top Flight, but the new Top Flight.
The Acclaimed.
The Acclaimed, right? If it's that, cool. It shows you how well that storyline's going. But I don't care who it is. I just want the storyline. But when you start telling me the story is that it's Booker T, that it is Chris Jericho, well, you've lost me because who gives a shit? I'm not concerned with the name. I'm concerned with what you're telling me is happening.
I like it. All right. So just to recap, we did do another poll on @TableShow on Twitter, and we said, what grade would you give tonight's AEW Dynamite? 61% gave it an A, 22% gave it a B, 11% gave it a C, and 6% gave it a D. So overwhelmingly, 61% gave it an A for the show. I think if I were to give that grade, I would say a B. I think the main event delivered in-ring action, gave a compelling storyline. Obviously, it got us to really get hot and heated here about a conversation of what happens next for AEW. Well, I'm talking about the main event, though. The main event gave us a conversation piece of what happens next. Where will we go? We also have some building blocks for next week. Will the Inner Circle be disbanded? Who will win the Diamond Stud ring? Sting
what
was
shirt
there.
Will Sting wear?
Okay, easy. We're going to do TikToks about this. You don't understand the significance of how great Sting is. You just, you know. He was the most popular. He was more popular than Hogan at Hogan WWE height. He was still more popular.
Oh, Bret Hart was the fucking Germany's number one.
Bret Hart just did some fucking moves. And Bret Hart stole the sharpshooter from Sting.
I watched...
Sting is awesome.
I watched the Dark Side of the Ring of the Montreal Screwjob this week. Fucking excellent if you haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. The story where Bret Hart just was being a baby and worked himself into a shoot.
Dude, if you... Okay, shout out to my Block Strongest Man. We read his email last week, right, of YouTube. And I sent him the link. I said, hey, you're famous now. We mentioned you on the show. And I said, we answered your question. Kind of not, and he responded in email. He said, it was like saying the words Bret Hart was equivalent to cursing at you guys. And he's right. And here's the thing. If you don't understand what we mean by Bret Hart thinks of himself in ways that nobody else thinks of himself, watch the dark side of the ring of the Montreal Screwjob and listen to every time Bret Hart goes to mention something, he works in a compliment for himself before he continues the conversation. He'll be like, well, I take great pride that I consider myself a world champion because I traveled around the world defending that championship. Anyway, so we were saying, right, like, it was like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, the main key point that I like taking away from that show was both Russo and Cornette hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
To the point
hate each other.
That Cornette says he's going to piss on his grave, which he will.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Do not doubt. If Russo dies first, he's going to do that. I kind of want that to happen because I want to see the video. And two, they both claim that they created the idea, and neither one of them probably did. So this is fucking. I agree
Patterson.
with Scott Hall, by the way, that this is a 100% work.
No.
From the beginning.
No.
Yep.
No. Bret Hart.
I don't think it was a 100% work. I think everything leading up to the final thing, and Vince going, "Hey, look, what about this idea?" And Bret going, "Fuck it."
No.
Right?
No. Bret Hart's too dumb to keep this gimmick.
No, you know what?
Long.
You know what? It just hit me. Because the whole point Bret Hart's been trying to make is, fuck you, you're not going to make a fool of me. And he still looks like a fool in that setting. So you're right. Yep, never mind.
Yeah, no.
It happened.
It was a shoe.
The story that the company gives us is probably the real story. And this is the weird case that that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, Bret Hart. And here's the thing. One thing I will say about Bret Hart. Bret Hart is an amazing in-ring wrestler. So he is accurate when he says he was really good, but that's like a sore winner. No one likes a sore winner.
I know you use the term amazing as a generic adjective there, but I don't think he amazed me ever.
Oh, there were some matches he did. Oh, come on. SummerSlam with Mr. Perfect. Obviously the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels.
The Iron Man match is the only one that ever really comes to mind. I forgot the Mr. Perfect match. And his brother's match. That one comes to mind too.
Yeah, WrestleMania 10, Owen Hart. Okay. WrestleMania 13 with Stone Cold Steve Austin. The SummerSlam match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. His SummerSlam match with British Bulldog, with Davey Boy Smith.
True.
No, he has some amazing matches.
All right, but more points for you around the horn points. All right. Yeah, okay.
But again, the thing that's off-putting about him is he's a sore winner. No one likes when it's like, hey, you won first place. And they're like, fuck yeah. And everyone else is obviously second.
I can't even. I wish I would have written down. But every time they cut to Bret Hart in this documentary about something, he finds a way to make it sound real quick as a drive-by. It was like, well, of course. I mean, we knew that I have the biggest dick in the room. And once that was settled, then we started talking about, the match, right? Like, it was always a little thing. Like, it was always to set himself up as like, well, I'm the greatest and I can never do no wrong. So clearly when they said this, how could you wrong the greatest man that ever fucking lived? Yes. Like, Jesus Christ, Bret Hart thinks Bret Hart's shit does not stink. When that's if you've ever heard that phrase, right? Like, you think your shit don't stink. Bret Hart is the equivalency of that phrase. So if I can ever epitomize, like, if somebody needs to know what we mean, just watch that documentary and listen to him talk, and you'll understand what I mean.
Definitely. All right, so that was AEW. AEW Dynamite, the debut of Sting, the new champion, and Kenny Omega, and some other building blocks for a very exciting episode of Dynamite next week. So now let's transition to the world of WWE. This weekend, we have a takeover. It's War Games. War Games.
This
War
might be...
Games, as William Regal says.
Yeah.
War Games.
And this might be... So, hear me out on this one, too. War Games is awesome. I love that NXT brought War Games back. And we've been saying, hey, War Games back is cool, but it feels like you're just finding ways to pair up 4 random people against Undisputed Era. Which, you're right, War Games forces you into a booking scenario where you have to get 4-on-4, right? It's the same reason Survivor Series can be stale. So you have to fit that mold. That said, they did that exact thing we're kind of complaining about and probably produced the War Games I'm most looking forward to.
I'll tell you this. So far that they've brought back War Games, my takeaway is why don't we just call this Undisputed Era versus the World? Because in each match, it's the Undisputed Era versus 4 other people.
Yeah, and again, that fits. Here you have a 4-man group who's a main
but what I'm
focus of
saying
your
is
show.
they've been the main event of the 3 War Games matches.
Had they not existed when they decided to bring War Games back, I think they decided to bring War Games back because this 4-man group existed.
Yeah,
and they thought,
which
this
shows
is
you
a
the
one-off.
power.
It hit so well, they did another one. It hit so well, now we have a yearly deal. So now is the issue we've discussed. But like I said, that said, I'm looking forward to this one more than I've been looking forward to anyone. And I think in large part that's Pat McAfee. That's Pete Dunne, as we've said. That is the idea that we're probably done with Undisputed Era after this.
We shall see. So let's get into our picks.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. So as you mentioned, we do have a War Games pay-per-view on a Sunday, not a Saturday. That's
Sunday.
one thing. One thing to mention here, we have it taking place
Not on
traditionally on your
Tuesday.
Saturdays. It's on a Sunday night. So in a singles match, I'm reading this off of eWrestlingNews.com, so I don't know the exact order, but we will get through what I see here. In the first match listed, we have Timothy Thatcher versus Tommaso Ciampa. Who do you got?
This is a tough one for me because you always see the aspect of like a guy like Ciampa is going to want to put over a new talent, right? If we're doing the peek behind the curtain thing, that's always at play. I feel like this is a great spot, storytelling wise, for Ciampa to ultimately put over Thatcher by beating him this time and sending Thatcher into what the I'm gonna just eat this guy alive. And we continue this on. So I'm going to say Thatcher loses this one to Ciampa almost in a way where Thatcher gets a little bit embarrassed, right? He gets caught in a hole that he's got to tap to.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Oh, hell no. And we continue this feud down the road. And I'm here for it. I mean, these two going at it for a little while is good television. These guys are brutal.
Yeah, I think Tommaso Ciampa wins. I think this is going to be a little bit of the allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ciampa, one of those kind of matches.
Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah. I think to your point, Timothy Thatcher then needs to take the second iteration of what this character is. Instead of just beating up on NXT trainees, it's going to be the next version of I'm a fucking badass, check me out. And I think to not foreshadow too much moving ahead, but I think this is a good way, assuming that this is the structure of the card, this is a good way to get the crowd excited and happy as we go into the other matches. So I agree with you. I've got Tommaso Ciampa. Next up, in a strap match, we've got this feud continuing. Cameron Grimes versus Dexter Lumis. Tim, who do you have?
I think Dexter Lumis. I think they're still high on this Lumis character for a while. I think this is a good victory over a name, and it's not a loss that would hurt Grimes, if you will. If I'm sitting in the creative room, again, peeking behind the curtain, but we do tell from a storytelling perspective, and if I'm making picks and I were to put money on it, I've got to look at that peek behind the curtain aspect of it. And I just think from the storytelling perspective, this is the easiest way to go. Is Lumis wins this because he's psycho, and ultimately you can't escape the psycho when you're strapped to him, and he wins. Grimes puts up a good fight, making him look like a scrappy little bastard, but he's still a little bastard, and he loses.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting because it's another gimmick match. You know, if you go back, we had that I believe it was called House of Horrors match or whatever it was, where it was a cinematic match in a haunted house, and I don't know exactly what happened there, but it happened, and we moved on. I can see this being the end of the feud, and Dexter Lumis, like to your point, just putting his stamp down on this and then moving on and saying, we're done. I am now going after the not TNT championship, but the North American championship, or maybe the heavyweight championship, something like that. But I don't know, because then where does Cameron Grimes go? He needs to be the zany guy that has a little bit of credibility. I think in a strap match, he can get the victory by shenanigans. So I'm going to go Cameron Grimes.
He can choke a guy out.
Or he does the thing where he just runs around Dexter Lumis to get his feet. Yeah, and then he's held up high.
He gives him the scrote strap, right? The little whack, real quick.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Scrote spank. Little Scroat Spank.
I think that's the name
I
of the
think that's an episode title. Scroat Spank.
All right, so let's move on to the next match. For the NXT North American Championship, it's a triple threat match. Champion Leon Ruff taking on former champions Damian Priest and then also Johnny Gargano. One thing that was of note from the past NXT episode is Johnny Gargano was on commentary, and behind him was not one man in a mask or woman. It was two people in Scream mask. So I wonder if that has something to play here. But Tim, what say you on the victory?
Only because of that, I'm going to give Gargano the win here because it was a coin flip for me that one of the two between Priest and Gargano was going to win this. I think the Leon Ruff train, I think they were like, hey, great. Little publicity for this guy, but look, we're not building storylines around this guy. We're going to give it back to one of the guys. This was a little sidebar because we like this guy, and, it worked. So I was up in the air on which one, and I think because of that, I think Gargano's going a new way, and we're going to get a weird storyline here out of this, and thereby I think Gargano wins because of, these weird Scream mask dudes. We get some kind of weird Gargano, whatever, right? We're going to get some kind of...
Johnny Wrestling.
We're going to get some kind of weird thing now. He's constantly evolving, constantly updating, and I think this is his new way, so I think he wins.
All right. I like that explanation.
A side note, he could get those folks involved and everything gets disqualified and Leon Ruff is still the champ, right? But I think Gargano's the main focus, and I think I'm going to put it on the board. If we were betting, Gargano wins.
I'm going to say Damian Priest. I think the side detour of Leon Ruff, to your point, is, hey, that was cool. Now we've got an established star. Let's have him go with Cameron Grimes or Dexter Lumis. Now we have another star that we can build other stories around. We don't necessarily need him to be the champion. Damian Priest, I do feel needs to be a champion, though.
I agree.
I kind of feel like he gets a little bit lost in the shuffle as cool guy with an awesome voice. What else do you want to see me do, ladies? It's like
he
something.
Does got an awesome voice.
He does.
I'm a little jealous.
Friend of the show.
I've got an awesome voice.
You do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think Damian Priest, I do agree to your point. Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, as a nickname, will get those two masked figures involved in the match. But I think Damian Priest prevails, and then we get Johnny and crew going after Damian Priest, and then Leon Ruff maybe goes with Cameron Grimes or goes 205 Live. He could go for the 205 Live title. He is 98 pounds, so that could happen. But yeah, I got Damian Priest. All right, next up in our first War Games match, we have Team Candice, which is Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, Toni Storm, and Indy Hartwell taking on Team Shotzi of Ember Moon, Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley, and Shotzi Blackheart. Tim, what say you?
I think the faces win this somehow because I just think this is all a big promotion, try to get them over, if you will. I mean, I think all the heel teams all the players are established, right? There's no story that we're needing to tell to get any of those folks over, right? Candice LeRae, the Toni Storm, that's an interesting heel turn there, if you will. But I think the faces come away with this with Shotzi as the shining star.
Oh, you think Shotzi's going to be the shining star? Yep. I think they're going to, I agree with you. I think it's Team Shotzi. I think it's interesting that the champion is on a team that's not named after her, right? Typically when back in the day, it was Team DX, even though the Hardys and CM Punk were also on the team, things like that. I think Io Shirai will be the one that says, remember me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the fucking champ. I went through all these bitches. I don't give a fuck about Shotzi. I don't give a fuck about Toni. Candice, I've already beat 1,000,000 times. I'm the fucking champion. We're going to remember the name of Io Shirai. So I think this is not necessarily a coming out party, but a reestablishment. Yeah, a reestablishment of Io Shirai.
Yeah, I think they're both standing tall, right? Like those two, Shotzi and Io, and then we get a face v face kind of, well, now we got to do this.
Now, another thing of note to mention from NXT's past episode, the Go Home show leading into this pay-per-view, Shotzi Blackheart was working on some type of something. We didn't get the reveal of what that was. We most likely will get it at the pay-per-view, but you saw Rhea Ripley and Ember Moon give her some type of, we've got the, golden ticket, for lack of a better term. And again, I'm paraphrasing because obviously they didn't say that, but we saw something that Shotzi was working on. So yeah, I think maybe I agree with you. And I think I will say we do get a Shotzi, Io Shirai, aren't we the two baddest bitches? Well, no, I'm the baddest bitch. Well, let's stare off and see who that is. We'll lead that into the next pay-per-view. All right, now as we go on, we get into the main event. It is the Undisputed Era taking on Pat McAfee, Pete Dunne, Oney Lorcan, and Danny Burch. Oh, I tell you what, again, another War Games match with the main event being the Undisputed Era. Tim, who wins the main event of the 2020 War Games match?
I'm going to say the Pat McAfee group finds a way to win this. And I think maybe McAfee and Pete Dunne stand tall. I think the other guys lose somehow, the Undisputed Era, and that leads to their dissension and eventual kind of splitting apart. Adam Cole maybe goes up, to the main rosters, maybe even a Kyle O'Reilly. You know what I mean? And we kind of move on and turn into that new era out of the Undisputed Era. But I definitely think we're going to get Pat McAfee and possibly Pete Dunne just because they're high on Pete Dunne, and that's very clear.
I think you're high on Pete Dunne.
I'm high on Pete Dunne, but look, they gave that guy several fucking 100-day title reign, and now they're focusing him in on one of the biggest spotlights they've got. So I think those two specifically look good. Maybe it's just Pat McAfee in the end, but that's going to lead him to his next feud eventually when he shows up for some random reason, because he can just be talking shit and somebody, chimes in. But like the Undisputed Era can move on, break apart, and do their things from here on out. And I think Kyle O'Reilly's going to get a push after this.
So I agree with 98% of what you said there. I do think it's going to be Pat McAfee's group that gets the victory. I think this is the swan song for the Undisputed Era. I think this is where we do see the coming out party of Kyle O'Reilly. Oh my God, did you see the crazy, insane move that he did? I'm a big fan of Kyle O'Reilly. Let's see more of him. Maybe Adam Cole does go to SmackDown, maybe goes to Raw, something of that sort. Or maybe he just gets a few weeks of rest or a few months of rest and comes back as something else down the road in NXT. I think, though, what will happen here is Pete Dunne, who I will say of the four, the tag team will be the tag team, and they'll take all the big bumps to make the Undisputed Era look cool, but they're not really going to do anything of note. I do think it comes down to Pete Dunne maybe doing, whatever this insane finisher is off the top of the cage or through the cage or whatever it is, right? Whatever they've imagined as this amazing spot, Pete Dunne will do it to a Roderick Strong, for example. And he will say I'm like, Pete Dunne will come out of that move going like, I'm the fucking man, right? And Pat McAfee will push him to the side, cover Roderick Strong, get the 1, 2, 3, powder out of the ring, run away. Ain't I the best? Ain't I the best? Ain't I the best? And then Pete Dunne is the fucking man. And now he's pissed off. And then in a couple months, whenever we want, Pat McAfee comes back. Pete Dunne goes, I haven't forgotten, motherfucker.
And that's going to be amazing.
Right.
God damn it. Tom.
That's what I hope happens.
Host of the night. Host of the night award goes to Tom. Everybody clap for Tom. Tom's
Everyone
put in a lot of great
Sting was
service
an
and work
all-time
for this organization for 7 years. We're
Sting
proud
was
to
an
have
all-time
Tom
great.
part of
Remember
this, part of our team, Tom. Appreciate you and everything you do, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tim.
that's a great idea, and I co-sign. Put me down. Sign me up. If there's a petition for this, I'm putting my signature on it right here. You can, right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of writing to the Spanish announce table, Tim, I believe we have an email.
We do. Yes. Let's jump into the
get
listener group. You can join in on the conversation. Use hashtag tweet the table while you're watching Twitter. If there's any good ones, we'll read them right here on the show each and every week. You can also send us a email at tableshow@gmail.com. And we got a late email, barely making the cutoff. Came in while we were recording the show. Recording this, maybe the second time. I don't know. We had a little bit of a tech issue. We'll see. But we're professionals. And we got an email, and it's from John Batten. Hashtag be like John Batten, and email the show, tableshow@gmail.com. You like that callback? All right. Yeah. He says, why does Don West need to be Kenny Omega's Impact hype man?
Well, I tell you why. Because Kenny Omega is the cleaner. And if anything wants to be cleaned, it's Kenny Omega. Speaking of cleaning products, we've got cleaning products 2-for-1 special. You need a Mr. Clean? Got you right here. You need a loofah? Got you right here. I tell you what, Don West as the spokesperson for Kenny Omega, there's nothing more that Don West loves than cleaning shit.
As I stated, Don Callis is good, but Don West would have been better. He's the better Don.
Way better.
Of the TNA Impact Dons. I mean, you could have went with Don Harris, and you might have done it. All right, so like, Don West would have been so better as Kenny Omega's,
well, and just
man. Like, oh my God, he's hurt. He's hurt.
Well, and just think of the promos, because again, AEW is just a pro wrestling t-shirt company. Of all the amazing deals that Don West could tell you about the Kenny Omega shirts, I tell you what, you want a Christmas gift? Here's a 2-for-1 beanie and hat and t-shirt deal that Kenny Omega. It's a cleaning product and a t-shirt. Can't you believe it? It's the best thing in the world. Clean.
I love it. This is why we have the emails. You should email the show, tableshow@gmail.com. You should use Twitter, #tweetthetable.
I am disappointed, though. I will tell you this. Be like John Batten. John Batten, I'm disappointed. I thought you'd ask me about Joey Janela's sunglasses. What the hell happened?
It's true.
Where's your sunglasses?
Where's your sunglasses? What a week, Tom. This was fun. I enjoyed meeting with you here again, coming into the pit with me here and having a good conversation. Rest in peace, Pat Patterson.
The Spanish announce table.